Osaji Mujuje Mendo Drum Linshin Indin Jimbunde Sanje Shindu Migde Beba Drogo Namda Shina Chop Yedam Guru Radna Mendrola Gulne Antaya Mis Tatangi Gomdi Ane sentient 탐제 믹스 해야 돼. 아니 단연 파마 숨갈로를 야 차님도 대체 다 저거 체매식이 꼼다나 신체제 아 sentient 탐제 대화던 대외주도 파 제기 동행이 주던 동행 탐제 파다 트래블치기 아니 저기 디 용외 체도 리시 당념는 내버 체기 인세알로 소베 대다 탐제기 삼로도부터 저 용사들 탐제 가르쳤으나 sentient 자체 트래블이 윤의 연구도스 당하나 지기 원하니 다 동해스년다 아니 대화세야디 대화점을 예 동해점을 쳐비치네 드라스지제 근데 유튜브 참배 아니 카고도 왔을라도 참배 안 되게 랜선으로 저어도 루메로 어들었다 줍든 받들라 타베 대화 왜다 왜메이 다 단대 차랑기 란주 슬랍디야디 아니 직딩기 로당기 차네 차랑기 자다 녀다 근데 시르시기요레스 이네디 타베 대화 토발라 저랑 게그레스 가르치는스나 타베 대화 원에디 가르치나 응외다 응외메 셰브디인스 응외다 응외메 셰브시도 잠베 아 뎀바 니루 오마디 통야드레스 제장가 니루 오마 통스디 아니 아란주 다도시 베나 다다 긴투된 배상 긴드시 디디디야 딜야 군 덴바니리아 저 송디도 군조 캠바도 전담 캠바스에 다조 단다디 응외당 시도 쳔베 그 덴주블 파샤 응외메시도 데메샤바 다 덴바 조바간 데베이나 타르베기 대화도 톱투요 말에 데메샤바디기 타르베 대화 톱투요 레스 타르베 대화 가르에서 응외당 샤바디레스
선데 렘베치 갑딜라디 응외당 응외메세야딜라 대화라 자거베페나 타웨 대화 응외탄 타웨 대화 응외메데 셔거베 야마나 타베 대화 치체 아니 응외당 응외메세나 덴바탄 데메 두고 데메
타르베 대화디 가르에 슬람나 응외당 응외메샤바디레스 덴두도 데메기 켜버심바디레스 딜라베이나 다딩엔데 시 코와 잡단체 다양긴기 소야딜량 고 잡아도 요래 이제 좀 군조도 전담 지침받을 직송고도 디제베이나 단단히 라단 제베이나 아메 아주 고문 잡도 점배 심진리야 아니 알네 제베 전에 누가 지다 펜타베 전에 야지 니디 피기 된딩네 누가스 니파 디 직체도 문두스에 소로지 꼬토고 문두스에 소로지 이제 점배 디 저랑게 탈베 대왕 뭐 마시면 드렸어 딜랜디 로베이나 야고로 통스를
So here in verse 17, actually, looking at knowing the functioning and non-functioning bliss of liberation, presenting dispositions and attitudes and tendencies, the thoroughly afflicted or completely pure sentient beings did not exist. How could these be known? But I focus, and first of all, on the first line where it says Tabideva, knowing the functioning and non-functioning, the bliss of liberation comes from understanding the functioning and non-functioning. And so in terms of we discussed before about in terms of there's a bit before that. In terms of the sentient beings, we've discussed these three categories of the enemy, the close friend, and the neutral person. And then practicing in relation to those three different categories equally practicing the four immeasurable thoughts. So the happiness that wishes to give those sentient, the wish to give those sentient beings happiness, the wish to help them remove their suffering, and then also sort of the joy, give them the joy, and the equanimity, which sort of sees them in a kind of free from attachment and aversion. And so this sort of helps us to really place sentient beings in a kind of position of central importance, which is very difficult. Now, the ordinary way of thinking and the ordinary worldly way of engagement is to, think of the enemy as the one who gives us suffering, and the friend, the close one, is the one who helps bring us joy and happiness. And that's the sort of ordinary way of thinking. But when this line where it says knowing the functioning and non-functioning bliss of liberation, so what it means is the cause of the bliss of liberation is understanding the functioning and non-functioning things. Now, this is a little bit curious, but the main obstacle to achieving the bliss of liberation is not seeing the truth, not correctly seeing the mode in which the mode of existence of reality. That is the main obstruction to liberation. And in Geshe Thupten Persang's commentary on this text, he sort of divided functioning and non-functioning into understanding conventional and understanding ultimate phenomena. But I would like to maybe present it from a way of understanding functioning as being true inherent existence, and non-functioning as being the lack of that inherent or true existence in that way. So then understanding both perhaps the thing which to be abandoned, the true existence, and then what the nature of reality is, which is the lack of that true existence, that knowledge would be the cause for the happiness or the bliss of liberation. And so, and also this not knowing, the not knowing which prevents us also from achieving this bliss of liberation would be this kind of very worldly way of seeing sentient beings who harm us in some way as being bad, inherently bad, and seeing sentient beings who sort of benefit and help us as seeing them as in a positive light. So this inability to distinguish, to understand that there's the not knowing of thinking like that is also an obstacle.
아니 빵거를 쳐봐. 다다 탐지디 아니 가르쳐도 최고도 수도 조 심진 대다 아니 자침부지 뭐 인상 대달 때니 아니 얘기 탈바주고도 탐지 침도 공주고도 아니 군이 녀모 나봐 장마 치고도 세야디 심진 자체 자자 말이베
So we need to, so then in relation to lines 2 and 3, where it reads, presenting dispositions, attitudes, and tendencies, this line, I think, refers to the fact that we need to understand in order to maximum benefit to sentient beings, we need to understand the mental dispositions, the attitudes, the tendencies, of the variety of sentient beings, and therefore we need the omniscient mind. In the third line, it talks about abandoning. We need to completely train or get rid of the thoroughly afflicted sorry, no, that we need to, the thoroughly afflicted means to get rid of, abandoning the karmic seeds and the manifest mental afflictions. Because if we talk about placing sentient beings in having a great central importance to sentient beings, then in order to attain that enlightened state of Buddha, we need to be able to get rid of, abandon this thoroughly afflicted class, which is the karma and mental afflictions.
조베 청준 되캔디 가르치는 semjen lama ta고 그랬어요. 아니 청주 초동 tumbe기 아니 베기 가르쳐 그래. 답 돌드나 산지기 주 용수 조버 때르캔디 아니 산제당 semjen 니게기 냠도 샤베이나 50-50 손으로 지래도 왔어. 제상을 산지를 자침부 최고고요나 semjen 자침부 최고고요 바티 다 롱다 리버 탐제는 로베 인두선배 semjen에 라마시도 따고 그래서 다디 돔럽 지르셔.
So verse 18, and so then it reads on, sorry, from the last two lines of the 17. So the completely pure, attaining the completely pure side, getting rid of the completely afflicted side. And these are only known through sentient beings. So then the 18th verse is a kind of overarching advice to us about seeing the importance of seeing sentient beings as the gurus. And it reads, as all these sentient beings are the cause of the factors of enlightenment. Therefore, those who wish for complete enlightenment should regard sentient beings as gurus. And so the question in the verse is, who are the people that what kind of person should be the one who regards sentient beings as the gurus? And the answer to that is those who wish for the completely enlightened state should regard the sentient beings as their gurus. And the complete provider, the one who helps with that complete enlightenment, is the Buddha. So the Buddhas are like valued the same equally, so therefore we should value the sentient beings as the Buddha.
심징 되는 거를 도스 라바이나 다 수주 세미나로야 약쇼르부터 랍지게 직디 다 단지네 지지 된제기 천주구 셈다 아니 산제 자침 부차야 천주 셈 자침 부차야 되서 상말로 아니 현된 집에 셈 될 때니 아니 정보 샤다르스 제장가 단다 얘기 되서 자침부를 라귀라 아니 저기 산지기 다 고르 치는 sen데 산지기 고르 치니 차트지 결혼라고 차버셨어 몰랐는데 잡 야 심징이 리도 잠배 가고 싶지 그래서 라고 요도 잠배 애니에게 산지리야 대바제부터 대바차 청기 맵서 그렇지 제장가 체 몰람서 차로도 잠배 제장가 다다디 측지도 지르고 가서 저번에 측지도 가라고 죽으르베 죽으르도 와 어디 대천지 고를 심심반에 제발라 어디래 다 대천지 고로 쓰도 대화 첨부 쓰도 산지주 고방샤 대 고를 심심반에 제발라 쓰도 된지기 아니 심징의 돈도 산지주 고방 토발 차세 삼로된 리지 여신배 갑라 아니 로알 넘버야 아니 얘기 그것도 sötu고 말을 써야 돼 싸워니는 미용하게 저랬지 그래서나 drowa namji dus lamne yago me drowa namji kadu sugu meza ne sanje ju koban tobu dos chula go yoris ando ji sanje ju koban tomde do drowe dungen sebal kale yon sare slavna ta sanje mi yudang chanju sem je go mi yudang be mashim so ese rich lam juice.
And
so, in relation to verse 19 here, which reads, thus there will not be the slightest impatience with the difficulty of moving towards purposely taking living creatures to be the doorway to great bliss. And so, this sort of this speaks about we feel that it's sometimes difficult to we feel that difficulty of how difficult it's going to be to work for the welfare of the sentient beings. So in order to attain, we have this sort of a slightly mistaken way of understanding that in order to attain enlightenment, we have to work hard for the sentient beings. But and then we feel that sense of real difficulty of doing that. So, but this is a little bit sort of devaluation of the Buddha to some extent, because we place this we prize and place very high value on the Buddha themselves, but then we're sort of not really thinking about the quality of the Buddha, one of the qualities of the Buddha, which is the quality of the Buddha's quality of the mind which wishes only for the welfare of all sentient beings. So that's and we make prayers and prostrations and develop faith in relation to the Buddha, but we should really think of it the other way around. We should not have the slightest difficulty, slightest impatience in relation to the difficulty of moving towards enlightenment, which is then in order for us to which then, developing the Buddha's mind, which will work spontaneously for the welfare of the sentient beings. So there's a kind of little bit, we've got this a little, sometimes we have our understanding of this a little bit upside down.
לתרגל סבלנות עם אחרים, אין סיכוי שנצליח להגיע להערה. אין סיכוי שנצליח...
And so therefore, that we take the living creatures to be the doorway to the great bliss, as it says that actually says in the lines 1 and 2 of the Tibetan, where we see the sentient beings as being the doorway to the great bliss, and not seeing it in this way of feeling it's difficult to work for them.
준주디 말로 간대주 구도 슬라비나 아니 준주디 심진 저저기 쳐도 아니 내게 녀와 나로려야 아니 개와망고 내고나야 아니 닝지 조메베 토네 아니 전주 셈들이시고도 딘제주 용발라 아니 준주 버진 라보도 스라 되게 거다 셈 예상가 디나신 제제 단다 다가란 게 나로려야 아주 치대 뒤져보지 줘서 간지 조원남기 쳐도 아니 동해를 민수버 채고 오면도 동해를 수기 수 톱살을 써야 돼 산지기 연된당 아니 심진기 동해를 삼니 아니 디니 버루들 수수고 로디 땡부지 대 토버지나 안돼 오늘 전에 들으셔 대바당 자원이 대바다 자원이 가수 수처럼 로버이나 안티 준주기야라 편도서봐 어디르셔
And so there are some lines in the Guru Puja which sort of ask Lama Chöpa that ask us where it is sort of asked what kind of joyous effort is required in order to what kind of a joyous effort is required. And the answer to the question is that the kind of joyous effort required is the kind of the joyous effort which strives towards developing the bodhicitta, which can the awakening mind, but which was also connected with the unswerving compassion, which wishes to be born in for each and every sentient being, whichever from the lowest of the hell realms, which each and every realm, in order to be born there, in order to help the sentient beings. So that's what kind of joyous effort is. That's what it means to have the practice of the perfection of the joyous effort. So in relation to this verse where it talks about impatience with the difficulty of for the purpose for the welfare or purpose of the migrators, living creatures, we should not have the slightest impatience. But so it talks about the joyous effort of having and also the patience or the forbearance to deal with suffering when working for the welfare of sentient beings.
다 더니 임바 심전남 더니 임바 세디 심전 아이 비게지 인스마레 딜리아 코에스케도가 다상 심전남 더니 임바 세디 안주 준주 나로라야 다신냠 제 송예기 된다디 디제로 게지맵체 다 전한당이 제로 오세네 구죽케도 조냠 제세디 랑니 타다파도 시부지게 지침부 체디야디게 아주 경라하셨어. 당에 제부줄로 제니 등하랑 자침부 체번나시 신 심진라야 되는신 자침부 지기 슬라도 잠베 다디네 원에고 갈소래 산용 버스네레 아니 제불로 버스네레 다 자기요 봐. 세상에 다신 염지기 고아디 다신 제비 된다디 아니 갈소래 제부치다 랑을 제부치는 신의 다랑 제부치 제가 책임 있어야 되는 딜이샤 세상가 아니 대단히 다 딜이야 삼로당당 지단에 망보시다요 심진지 거딘 감백관에 아니 다시 냠지 지그 인세야다 망보요 다이나야 슉도 마소네 뉴바도 마소네 최슈 잡데 다시 냠지 지그 뉴바도 마소네 조도한데 가스디 거활은 가고 여러 시중 안좀 망체 지금 삼러스 다운데 가스디 축도버 시부지 삼도 좋고 신시디 파종원의 축도버 시부지기 비게 삼로코 근데 다 돌되나 umme shune sombe rangone do baseti 어디 비게 축도 시부지기 비게 통원도 잠베 자원이네 코디 제복 로그인스 거린 친구 인세바 잠시디기 지라지 콩마 큐마 되었을지 가르진서나 당동이야 지바하데도 왔어 마세도 할래 차베 차바세네레 당신이 수심부터 신세도 파종하는 예 샘기 정수 투버지기도 샘 템부지기 시부지 대도 차고 템부세네 처음에도 차고 주요 되도be 아니 되게 제투요 말이스 제장가 단다 다신념지 국권의 전주 샘 기술세대 조직이 아니 맥세기 과견지 동반이리야 동반이 과 내도 송배나 한 다신념지 문에 그랬어요. 내가 내가 대직대도. 달라 치료도 좋아다. 주마다죠. 달라 원심이스. 아니 디와도 과도스 내 줘서 봐. 제장가 치료 오보다 아니 랑게 충마세 되잖아. 다 파트너. 오 코란도 참마로야. 现在没有同long接图的，现在没有同的没了净图的些的，到底过了，底下不去中呢？大现在就也不去中呢。
And so, in relation to verse 20 here, where it says, with regard to the correct attitude, sentient beings are simply me. I will not strongly cling to material things, nor to my spouse, and so forth. So, it doesn't really make sense to say sort of sentient beings are me. It can't really, it doesn't sort of, there's no way to really relate to that. I am sentient beings and sentient beings are me is not, it doesn't make sense in some way. So I think that, and this also can be spoken about in relation to the method of developing the awakening mind called the equalization and exchange of self and others. So in that method of cultivating the awakening mind, we're not really taking ourselves and putting them there and taking the other person and plonking us here. It's not exchange. So there's the equalization, but then particularly in the aspect of exchange of self and others, it's not I become them and they become me or something like that. But the way that the kind of reference the context in which it's done is that we have always placed such great value and importance on ourselves. We're completely kind of self-focused. And what we're exchanging is that feeling of value, importance, and centering others rather than ourselves. So placing the tremendous value on others rather than one. So taking that value away from ourselves and placing it on others. So that's really what it means when we're talking about exchanging self and others. So, and not just kind of taking them and them being us and us being them, or that this is the way that it's done. And there are many underlying kind of sort of ways of developing the sense of equalizing and then exchanging, such as feeling gratitude towards the sentient beings. In the process of equalizing and exchange of self and others, there are many underlying kind of sort of motivations or ways of thinking which support it, such as the feeling the gratitude to the sentient beings. But I think these all are very effective, but I think the greatest way of the greatest sort of method, the point of greatest importance, and the point which is generally prevents us from really fully developing the practice, is this sense in which this kind of self-substantial, solid, independent kind of existence of oneself and solidly out there, over there, independent existence, almost we can say like existence from one's own side of ourself here and the others over there. And this seems to be a kind of sticking point, a point that prevents us from really developing the equalization and exchange of self and others properly. And so you know, this leads to and this is sort of based in our internal kind of over-reified sense of self, egoistic self, the overly strong self-grasping, which then really seems to prevent us from being able to properly exchange self for others. And Atisha himself says that the best way of doing this practice is to be able to understand the emptiness.
다고 켈레네 말레네 제 제디 요레스 제 생각 어디를 캐나스 요레 당한도 켈레 가고 요레 이날 켈랑 요레스 어디 된가 요레 뒤에 고란수 지하고 내오면도
So then we read it's verse 21, which reads, then I admit having harmed myself, my parents, and also my children and spouses. Although sentient beings should not be harmed, So then, so in this word here where it says I admit to,
다저선 켈랑도 요르비슨 다 켈랑 원에 전에 요르다 겨우가 막 켈렌 차위 슈라 늘 sama 켈랑 요르 켈링 요르비슨 다 가고 요르
אוקיי, אז לפי ההסבר של
so there's a sort of a little bit of play on the words in Tibetan here, which I think only probably people who've studied sort of the great texts, and particularly the sort of the sort of debating and philosophical tradition would perhaps understand, where it uses the word kelang in which is actually a kind of past tense of the word. So it's sort of this thing of there's a difference between having accepted something and accepting something. It's almost like so it says here, I admit to having harmed my parents, and so in the part I have to own up to the fact that I've had it, but do I really accept it? That's another thing. It's something. There's a kind of play on the Tibetan words here, which I think only those who've studied philosophy will really understand. And there was also a last piece missing from verse 20, which I didn't say, which was that with because Joe Atisha said that the understanding of emptiness really is the most beneficial supportive method for exchange of self and others. That allows us to release our clinging to material possessions and to our spouses, etc. And so that was the last two lines of verse 20.
נגרג'ונה אומר שמאחר ואנחנו מקבלים את קיומם של חיים קודמים וחיים באים, מה שנגרג'ונה אומר, כפועל יוצא מזה, אנחנו גם צריכים לקבל את הפגיעה שגרמנו לאחרים.
Oh, and yes, so I think in terms of sort of tenet systems, we sort of say, oh, yeah, I accept that kind of sort of tenet system, say Nagarjuna, but do we really, we sort of accept it, so to speak, but do we really believe in it? It's more like that. This play on words is more like we accept it in some way, but do we really accept it? Do we really believe it?
민계의 주길래 상말로 심진 디간을 마치고 체만용이 지겨요. 둘이 이제 차상시사. 다양한 용에 되지 있다. 다체 좀 손해 디 여기서 칼로리를 쉬고 쉬어야 되냐도 칼로리 디 칼라기 식지들이 잠되냐도 저게 안고 디치도 와서 다들 사지 시부시부지도 다 좋아져 손세 삼로들 레오레스 신부 도스다는 가져봐도 사기 봤어. 좋았다는 거다. 다 신부 도스 가져봐도 사기 봤다. 아니 정보신은 니네 디파도 만도다 계제요 말이야. 디네마 참말로 그 디레스 세미나로 땅에 사냥녀리 통녀녀리 그것도 다 고구마도 세. 나 신체지. 니 누르니서 정말 제자로 땅을 누르니서 제 고야 그러면 도스다. 야구 제로 공부도 세디 다탄다 디그나로는. 녀바텐다 제자와 인스 다 차송세. And so in this verse here, where it talks about, having harmed myself, my parents, and also my children and spouses, although sentient beings should not be harmed. So there's this prescription to avoid the harm of the sentient beings.
and all the kind of negative ways that cheating, lying, stealing, all of these things, the breaking of all of the 10 non-virtuous actions. There's what this verse is saying to us is that there's really no there's no one who hasn't done all of these things at some point. So that's what the verse is sort of saying to us, is when it says that I admit to having harmed myself, my parents, my spouse, etc. Although sentient beings should not be harmed, I've done all these things. So it's a sort of admission of guilt. So Rinpoche was using an analogy about how, if we take an example of food, which is it was very fattening, very high in very high calorific content, and then he said how much how far, I mean, how much of you and sort of talking about how it's very bad very bad for the body, and then saying to someone, well, how much of you are really sort of partaken in that kind of food, and they sort of they say, well, I'm not currently partaking of it, but I used to sort of eat it like that. So it's a kind of way in which we things that we've done in the past. They're things which we've done in the past. So here we admit to the actions that all of us must have done in the past. We may not be currently eating high calorific food, which is bad for the body, but we did it in the past and it's bad for us. And in the same way, we may not be currently engaged in these negative actions towards these people who are close to us, but we've done them.
동면레 쇠바 신기 네바 제베 텔야 뇌린 치면세 손으로 봐. 다 뇌린 치면세 그 섬도 나돌야 뇌린 치면이 구베 치면세 도나도 다도 체 토르진시. 다디 섬도 당당지 마신비나 소소기다 네바지니 다다지 저우도지인비나 안코그 가르치네 제주세 이게 저 자원이네 말이에요. 제장가도 좀 된디기 강사다 쥐바스 니 예와지치 강사라 그바 쥐발라 아니 쇠바땡고 비게디 다디 망타송다세다 다디는 그 갑자기 가르치고 자치 그 강사들 그거 좀 말라 토네 가르치는 강사들도 그거 자고 요래 가르치니 쥐어받들이야 그 누워이 몽어신지 딜러 놀러도 무슨 말소네 제고 요래 김생 가르치는 세베이나 강사디 요주요 강사디 야랑 주요 강사들라 야다 누구 니게 토네 아주 삼당 당기요 고거딘 친구 임비차네 고리야 삼당야지 누구 제비 차네 고리야 다세고 직마도 지 드라스도 좀 베피게 가두이네 고다 임베되고 알아주 지난주 나로 유지를 지금 제대로 주는 계속 튀는 맛이 다다잔찬이야 체매를 항상 전부 자득 유지를 제상아 대주 지난주 예와디야 고지 제토비나 강사라니 때문에 쉐벌이 지긴스라 아니 배 파종원의 수 계제디 당부초 마셔베네 랑 파종원들을 돈이 계시해둬야지 라드 추din 연구도네 랑 배워 먹어봐 그도 비게 사자디가 그렇다고지 쉐벌 그도 이네 고잡된 잠게 채둬야지 네가 뭐주고 지인지 미치 고고요 야 가리나 섬주봐
And so then the next verse talks about the practice of patience. So here it says, having an attitude of benevolence and patience towards sentient beings who commit great faults, with steadfast respect for sentient beings, one does not commit the slightest fault. Then we talk about often in terms of various kinds of patience, such as the patience of having having patience with suffering and difficulties, and also the patience of the patience which is a kind of non-retaliation in relation to others' harm towards us. But also it's so those are kind of basic some of the basic forms of patience, but we need to perhaps have a kind of higher understanding of those, in the sense that so we're never saying that the enemy harming us, and the harm is the situation is, in some sense, we're not saying the situation is okay. We're not condoning it in some way, particularly the harm itself. That's not being condoned to some extent. It's not saying, oh, it's not harmful. It's not devaluing that in some way. But what the third line here, with steadfast respect for sentient beings, towards sentient beings who commit great faults, with steadfast respect for them. So why does it say this? What does this mean? And this is where we have to differentiate between the person. So in a situation where a person is harming us, we have to differentiate between the person who is harming us and the action. So what is said is that we have respect for the person, but we develop patience in relation to the harm itself, the action that's taking place. And why should we have respect for sentient beings who are harming us? Because so it's not about not knowing what is bad and faulty and to be given up, but so in terms of the action, but the person can always improve. They can always change, and an enemy will not always be an enemy. So they can develop and change. And we've all had, I'm sure all of us have had experiences of life when in an early part of your life, you may have had someone who we were very close to and then became an enemy of ours. And then the opposite may also be the case. Someone we were very close to, who is an enemy of ours who we became very close to. So the reason it's said that we develop respect for them is because, so we have to learn to distinguish between the person and the action, and navigate all in situations wherever we go. So the 23rd verse reads, "The wearing the armor of diligence that wishes to benefit these sentient beings, even remaining 1,000 eons in hellfire, for the great result of enlightenment is a delight," which is a kind of, developing our courage and conviction to be able to practice diligence in relation to the sentient beings. So here in wearing the armor of diligence, so talking about the perfection of diligence or joyous effort, and then the sort of courage that is required for this process. So even remaining 1,000 eons in hellfire. So, but here Nagarjuna, I like to translate the term Sundru in Tibetan as joyous effort in English, and Nagarjuna, and if we tease out the word effort from the joyous effort, then I think in the fourth line of this verse, Nagarjuna gives us a hint as to, because in some sense we need a delight in why we're doing something. So he says the delight is for the great result of enlightenment, and that's where the joy comes from.
위로도 통해 여러분 매도도 빠로 되게 측지 라고니 태문자인데 아니 야원데 저주 구즈 칠로 때버 쇼스 제제니 지금도 와고죠 신화사보다는 지금도 와 당에 디글람상 서포트 코드도 제도면도 이나야다 심슈드 현토리아레 아니 라와도 지금 치위가 그런 아주다 추고마 때지 표 잡아다 차차서 니마 강딜 때지 대디고 다 건조배 수고 용조 몇 번에 단도에 맹간 나로리아 라고 태문자지 아니 배 단도심 주신 거면도 와 제가 심근에 봐서 쉽지리샤 안 라와도 제상가 된적이 좋아돼 심지어 탐지기 쳐도 아니 또 셔도에 직래 인도 담배 다니와리네디 용토 유지를 봐 미신다 다이네고 빼지도 와 하는 통주요지 레디 당하는 저 계획차와 친구지 주변에 내가 너버드 처처럼 줘봐이나 될 준주 세다 안에 라와도 준주 개발래 지난주 인지 미지디 준주의 료도 버드 증자베이나 안디 나로네 준주 야고지 개발래 냐려야 준주를 때문에 아제 세죠 아제 bright positive bright 다야 도어도 말다 on the did confidence the arts 도 지지게 confidence 도 고주스 내 confidence 레더니 제토를 해야 돼 되게 쉬우지 약도래 아니 니버디 양내 양도 추마선에 루야 손으로들야 사베만감 추기야 아니 로시기가 나시 아니 양내 양도 좋아디 양세 레온도 선배는 고 용야디 빼고 있으래 뒤은 뒤주셨다.
So here in this verse where it talks about, in the line where it talks about reigning 1,000 eons in hellfire for the great result of enlightenment is a delight. So I'm thinking of a more secular example that we've all probably, most of us are quite aware of in the situation in Tibet where many people have perhaps under the oppressive conditions that they live under inside Tibet, have decided to self-immolate, to burn themselves to death in a protest. Now, I can't. I mean, I have no power in my words to speak from here, from India about the situation, and also it's difficult for me to directly support directly support what they're doing but in one sense we can see what we see when they're doing that is that many of them as they self-immolate are folding their hands together and praying to His Holiness Tenzin Gyatso, and also that either for his long life or his wishes to be granted, and then going up in flames, and so this is for for the situation of Tibet, and so it's hard to directly support it, but if we take one thing from it, the tremendous courage and positivity that they have in that situation, and if we and so relating it to the verse here in terms of our for the great result of enlightenment, from this example we can see how the desire for the welfare of the sentient beings, and how the great result of the delight of a great result of enlightenment, with developing that great desire and confidence, courage or conviction, should have a kind of delight with it. Now, in the joyous effort is spoken about in the 7th chapter of Shantadeva's Way of the Bodhisattva, and it also talks about supportive conditions for joyous effort, one of which is 4 main supportive kind of hordes or armies or gatherings of supportive conditions, one of which is a kind of pride, but we think of this in terms of a positive pride. And this positive pride should be something that a kind of confidence or positive pride, which should be something that, in the sense of we can do this, should be something that's like a water being poured on a dry seed in order to allow it to grow. We should water our practice of joyous effort with this self-confidence or pride, which is expressed here, and that kind of delight which helps us to develop joyous effort or diligence.
פעולות המועילות שלנו בימי המאמץ הנלהב, היכולת שלנו לבצע פעולות חיוביות, מיטיבות, והמאמץ הנלהב ילכו ויתגברו.
Tenen dagi kedan jidang tobola, jidawa da jini nyoba ye simjenta ta samde wangi ne lama tane lamar rabdo gom se ta di te chagurashto.
So verse 24, which reads, through the power of concentration I regard sentient beings who harm me in various ways, by hindering my growth and progress in exhausting my faults and diminishing my accomplishments as gurus and gurus amongst gurus. So this is quite a complicated verse to understand. So first of all, before we take a break for lunch, I'll sort of give my interpretation of this verse, and then later I'll listen to what Geshe Tupen Pelsing had to say about this verse, and then also make any additions to it that I feel are relevant. So verse number 25, I'll come back to verse 24 after the lunch break. So verse number 25 reads, thus it shall be proclaimed that if they have the 5 qualities, well-born bodhisattvas, endowed with the root of bodhicitta, will thoroughly be imbued with the Arya Paramita of wisdom.
탐지 침배 고방티 레게 자진 지게 자와진 아니 전주 선반이 아니 파바 시럽을 침바 이스 다디 디페진 디 코나 우마 주변나 로려야 반년 다와 잡베기 아니 단다 짐바 주름 서바 준주 삼된 탐지 아마 시럽관 레온도 전배 지도로에 속은 달라도 민딩 기부지게 최바이 유도 최바 대신 들양도 왜냐면 연된란데 개인 로세 드리죠. 다디기 된다 가르도서나 아니 강 권의 시비 진보 주름 서바 주류 삼된 아보데도 탐지 미롱한 잡지레스 지금 로도 두고요레스 얘나양 양 타바함 남양 타바지간은 좀 먼저 세야지 아니 가리가 하고 그랬어도 아니 따위 개버치 그랬어 시럽이 개버치 그랬어 다 제가 따왔어도 유기 따와로 거기나 다야티체 다켄딜리아 아니 시럽스 다딜레 원도 점베 저장가 시럽디기 파르디 침을 제주고 그랬다. 파르디 로 죽현디 가르랬으나 튀겐도 소리스라나 시럽들이었어. 근데 야고도 와 저장은 진보 여바장이 핑구 말에 진배 파르디 침 도고 요랬어. 주름 여바장이 핑구요 말 삼대 여바장이 핑구요 말이 아니 라서버요 행위 뒤점 여바장이 핑구 말이 complete simmerbe kanamju injiger kalsire perjin parod chimba seti perfection the perfection seti jazang perfection seo no zambe ko perfect ro maso ne chaya thi so karjensna ko jaje maso ne ku nibadi jaje ngobju tuju mado zo mena ko jazang perfect chayo marba ta ko niba yongzo zo pa tyen toya dilya an jazang ga shirab simbe chimba 딱 돌도나 시럽이 심베 탑 세티 다다 공름 나는 리그로 봐 제가 탑이 심베 시럽이 심베 탑 소문은 단다딜라 시럽이 심베 권에 아니 취향하고도 다 담제 로베이나 아니 산지가 살은 도토그레 어디 딜레시 딜레시 잠들으세요 제가 고린 방만 쓰는 거라 이제 디 공름 바로 나도 삼죠
And so here in the verse number 25, isn't it? Verse number, hang on one second. Verse number 25, where it says, thus it shall be proclaimed that if they have the 5 qualities, well-born bodhisattvas endowed with the root of bodhicitta will be thoroughly imbued with the Arya Paramita of wisdom. So, first of all, the 5 qualities are the previous 5.
So,
the 5 are the previous mentioned 5 perfections of generosity, ethical discipline, patience, joyous effort, and concentration. And then it also says the well-born bodhisattvas endowed with the root of bodhicitta will be thoroughly imbued. The well-born, so there's a word here in Tibetan, legge, which I think could be referred to the fully enlightened, the kind of fully omniscient state, and the root of which is the bodhisattvas themselves. So the bodhisattvas becoming the fully enlightened state with the previous 5 perfections, and then, as we will see, with them. Now, in Chandrakirti's entering the middle way, in the 2nd verse of the 6th chapter, he talks about is a verse which reads, just as a single man with eyes can easily lead a group of blind men to their desired destination, here too intelligence leads the sightless virtues and guides them to the conqueror's state. So this is this is talking about how the view is required. We need the particular in order to perfect the paramitas, the previous 5 paramitas. So the previous 5 paramitas are described as a group of blind men, and the view are the eyes which lead those blind people to the conqueror state, the fully enlightened state, as like Lekge, as I mentioned there. And so it is the wisdom, the sight, the wisdom, the sight, the correct sight, which leads the others to which perfects the the other parameters. It sounds a bit odd to say, which takes them completely beyond and completely perfects them. So we could maybe say that on their own, they're like 50 or 60% there, but we never consider 50 or 60% to be perfect. And so the complete potentiality is completed by the wisdom. And so in Kamala Shila's stages of meditation, I think it's in the central section of that, the middling section, it talks about method infused or imbued. Here the word in the translation is being used as imbued. Method infused or infused with wisdom. And also it talks about wisdom infused or imbued with method. And so those who wish to go to the fully enlightened state need the combination of the first five of the parameters, and then also conjoined with wisdom in order to complete those.
소장 용수 땅으로 진내장 대다 가월 저번에도리 다 노르나 지기 심젠테다 탐제리야 아니 지기 거소래 거진 텐제 아니 지기 대다 거진 서버 제베 삼로들로 토베이나 드리 삼로지 야고지 샤베이나니 청주 전부 토베도 대양 마체베체 그든 내가 제베이나니 아니 되네베 지기 깨어만 걸이야 아니 지금 수술 누구냐 거야 드리지 드레샤스 다 딘데 인도 잠베 소장 용소 땅을 체내장 땅 얘기 오늘 전에 수 현을 내가 제바도 파디 소나 신치제 담 가서를 담지 때문에 치세도 답에 소로 돈에 치세요 소로 봐 딘데 지기 소 딘데 지기 때문에 쇠제 아니 랑기 소데 아니 심진기 턴도 제바 이나양 아니 대다 가월 제반이 둘이 시도점be 대다 가월 제야디 가르스나 탐지진be 고방 때네 콘조로 타바도 탐지진be 고방 떼야 들어봐 든지 중보이나 아니 탐지들이시 다 탐지들이시.
So this verse number 26, which reads, through relying on those sentient beings I attain the very great. Through harming them, I fall into distressing states. Even if I have to completely give up my life, it is fitting to be fond of them. So to sort of summarize this verse, first of all, there's the need for us to remember the kindness of all sentient beings. And then through that, through remembering the kindness and then through developing the wish to be able to repay the kindness, then we need to attain the great. What is the very great? It says, I attain, but what we need to do in order to repay the kindness is to attain the very great state of the great enlightenment in order to repay the kindness. The second line reads, through harming, then I fall into distressing states. So if I harm them, then I'll fall into kind of lower realms. And then the third and fourth verses are our life forces. This is like a promise that our life force is, I promise to give up my life if necessary for the welfare of others. And being fond of them means to attain the enlightenment for them.
야보지도 장보 임에도 미신, 들이 중고 임에도 미신, 이나 이제 유여베이나 야고도 시부지 두가 심는 심야 지수이랑다 제시나 다가 초래 엔디 인도점에 탄다 아주 양디 상제 초조만 직된 엔디 슈드라 디도 양라도 바치도와 엔 처번에 시부시면 요래 엔저장 양라도 바치 직된 아니 테네디 전주시면 너무 송야디 시디 단다 차우차우로 봐 아니 디차로 숨지 되는 샤기 다나 간시 뉴스루디
rinpoche tse kandechi
간시 템베 다라 뉴스루디
on is that okay
So what we'll do is actually we'll recite this verse 26 3 times in the way of sort of so for instance for those who've taken bodhisattva as a kind of sort of recitation, which is almost like a way of for me to bestow the bodhisattva vows, I will for those who've received the bodhisattvas or vows already, they should imagine that the bodhisattva vow that they've received already should be refreshed and strengthened. And for those who have not received them before, then we can imagine developing this wish, which feels how good it would be to receive the bodhisattva, how good it would be to receive the bodhisattva vows in the sense of a kind of aspirational. And also for others who maybe don't wish to take the vows then directly, but they sort of have a rejoice in the kind of and rejoice in the positivity of that. And I think the Rinpoche said that what we'll do is recite the Mahayana refuge prayer and also the Seven prayer, because we have here an altar set up with all the necessary objects to which we would offer. And then also I think we would recite the verse 26 3 times also in order to cultivate the awakening mind of bodhicitta.
ולאחר מכן אנחנו גם נאמר את תפילת שבעת הענפים או החלקים בעמוד מספר 16 בחוברת. מאחר ויש לנו פה אופרינג על האלטר, אז רימפוצ'ה אומר שגם בעצם יש לנו את הסטאפ הדרוש ללקיחת הנדר, אז אנחנו נאמר ביחד את הבית הראשון בעמוד מספר 10, אחרי זה תפילת שבעת החלקים בעמוד מספר 16, ואז נחזור אחרי רימפוצ'ה, אני מאמין, אנחנו נקרא את בית מספר 26.
다들 어런저 논의동 앞에 하중면에 좀 된데 다들 굴려 견지 숭주의 나연도 전에 달린 좀 된데 아니 당 아주데 이스라엘 롱발이야 돼 단다 사자데 가서 나신 거사 네사밈 나로리야 아니 데리슈 코르도 제바 앞에 지카르소를 수수 대배 좋나 아니 강남에가 조체바 뒤도 두버쇼 소문나신 지지 수수역이 몰람당 네배 조베이나 상제의 전주 셈벌라 고 페토마도기 삼로걸 굴롱 떼고 요 말에 페토고 요를 대인도 선배들이 뒤 좀 된데 수직 패송 사바 지당 아니 좀 된데 이게 되는데라 라랑이 진진 잡을라 막 알아로지나 겨울음치 다 겨울음치고 아니 뒤 타고들이야 아니 사제거니 르수마체베게 다 주주 지게 짐벌치게 아니 디기 주병어다 주벨라마 용 수조여체 아니 되네 지게 나 지게 사자가와 강살이야 당 한지게 전주선배 체마토바 양고 지게 명단들의 매대니 지글이야 산제 전주선배 주바 망고 싶지요 내도 용수조바 다가라냐 여비체 아니 전부랭데 나로라 지게 세바상고 싶고 체체 하고 가르쳐 그래 다 지도와 지게 남시 주와도 도스니데 괜히 플라스틱 가래체서 배 저불이야 고 쇼직디 셈 녀버쇼치고 구유 수교 돌 내가 채되는 어떠저 장대 해디 예도 옆치 아니 되네 다 다른 계제 쇼디 가르도 쓰나 이게 메리트 필드 나로라 참말로 상계의 전주선바 샤다 주여버 되게 오더라 아마 오장 말다 야디 오게 지기 차바직도 오더라야 다 쇼지 손로지나 또 상계 전주선바 된데 쇼 근데 레지 오더라야 아니 다 셈지 탐제 다 나로라야 아니 여시다 땅 나와도 지난주 지기 감마가 유니트 줘야 되나 로고로 봐. 디나로리스. 드링 문에 타는가 남자준도 미 규만한 신식 상부당 그매. 드링 문에 타는 비지게 디 청주 셈세의 시부지게 자천부지 러시아. 안들지게 그 톱톱지 제구도 디제비나 신기와 랑기와 나랑의 능미기와 다디 아주 조망부지의 랜디 탭도도 어디 레지기체도 아니 산제다 전주선 봤을 때당 아니 심전 탐제 들은데야 다 방불로 된 주시지 아니 다 셈께버 책이 시제 어또 시제 특제도 되잖아 지금도
So then so what we imagine is in terms of the sort of way in which we imagine taking this aspirational vow of bodhicitta is that we imagine we actually imagine that Buddha who 2,500 or 600 years ago strived hard to attain enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings, and we actually imagine that Buddha has come here to this place in Israel, Nazamim, I think it's called Nazamim, to this place. So if we make the correct prayers, there's no reason why they cannot come here. They don't need to rely on the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The Buddhas don't need to rely on developing some kind of motivation and then coming here. With our requesting prayers, we can really imagine that they have come right here today, and we also imagine them to be one with our root Lama, perhaps that's His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and around surrounding them surrounding that figure is the Buddhas and all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and also all of the kind of lineage holders of all of the Tibetan traditions, the practitioners, the masters and gurus and lineage holders of the Tibetan traditions. And also we can even imagine those people who are working. So what we're doing is creating the merit field. We can even imagine those who work in positive ways, in all kinds of positive ways, who haven't even heard the word bodhicitta, but who work tirelessly for the welfare of sentient beings. For giving as an example, throughout the world, the sort of problems of kind of pollution and rubbish and pollution, and those who are working hard in order to clean up this environment. We can also include all these kinds of positive people working hard for the welfare of the sentient beings and the environment. So if we imagine the Buddha to be sat at a kind of on a small kind of on a throne, and then slightly lower than that, but not too low, slightly lower than that, we imagine that all of the sentient beings. So these are all of the sentient beings, without us differentiating into those sentient beings which we like and those sentient beings which we don't like. So making sure that we don't fall into our more common ways of thinking. So not dividing them up, and then we think of imagine this merit field, and then developing this developing the awakening mind, the mind of bodhicitta, for the welfare of this bodhicitta, which provides everything for all, both ourselves and others, those close and those far from us. And so we imagine this kind of merit field, visualize this merit field, and then we will recite the relevant verses while holding this visualization. So if possible, we do 3 prostrations to the merit field and to
3 prostrations.
Yeah, if you've got problems with your legs or there's some difficulty in you getting up, then please feel free not to do the prostrations. And so we do 3 prostrations to the merit field and all of the figures in the merit field. And then you sit with we sit in order to take the vows. We sit with on our knees with hang on a sec, with one of our usually with one of our the left knee raised, but I think sometimes also people sit with both knees on the ground. In a sort of crouched position with the
if you can kneel down with your right knee on the ground, we'll start our recitations. אוקיי, אז אנחנו קודם כל נתחיל ב-refuge ו-bodhicitta. We'll start for people at home, we'll start with refuge and bodhicitta, and we'll recite it 3 times. So בואו נקרא את זה בעברית בעמוד מספר 10. בבודה, בדרמה, בקהילה העילאית, אבקש מכם עד להערה.
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and other perfections, may I attain the state of enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and other perfections, may I attain the state of enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. By the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and other perfections, may I attain the state of enlightenment for the welfare of all beings.
נעבור לעמוד מספר 16 ונאמר את תפילת 7 החלקים. For those of you at home, we're going to do now the 7 limb prayers, and we're going to do the abridged version. אשתחווה ברחשי כבוד באמצעות 3 השערים. אגיש כליל את ענני מנחות, ערוכות באופן ממשי ופרי הדמיון. אתוודע על כל המעשים השליליים שנצברו מזמן ללא ראשית. אשמח במעלותיהם של היצורים הנעלים והרגילים. אנא יוותרו עד להתרוקנות מעגלי הקיום וסובבו את גלגל הדרמה למען...
Sorry, I don't have a quick version of this to hand, so it's the...
For the people at home, Rinpoche said that also as a factor for building up our motivation. We will recite verse 18, so you can recite verse 18 and think about its meaning.
So I think the verse 18 from the text here, so all these sentient beings are the cause of the factors of enlightenment. Therefore, those who wish for complete enlightenment should regard sentient beings as gurus.
Is that true?
And then the 26.
נעבור לבית מספר 26, verse number 26. הסתמכות עליהם מובילה להגשמה
So relying on those
הכבירה.
sentient beings I
פגיעה
attain the
בהם
very
מובילה
great. Through harming them,
לנפילה
I fall
למצבים
into
קשים.
distressing states.
גם אם
Even
יהיה
if I
זה
have to
במחיר
completely
חיי,
give up my life,
מן
it is
הראוי הוא
fitting to be
לאהוב אותם.
fond of them. So take these verses to mind.
אני חושב שהבודה הוא מאוד שמח בכוונה שלנו היום. מאחר ועד כה במהלך חיינו אנחנו נתנו דרור, נתנו חופש למצבי תודעה אחרים, במקום זה עכשיו אנחנו פיתחנו את השאיפה להגשים את מצב הבודה עבור הזולת, וזה משהו שמשמח את תודעתו של הבודה, כמו ילד שמשמח את לב הוריו, או ילד שמשמח את מורו, או את מוריו. ההתחייבות שלנו בבודיצ'יטה היא משמחת את לב הבודה. נעלה די אינצ'יקטו לדי לגורב. לעשו. אוקיי. רימפוצ'ה אומר, אפשר לוותר על זה. שאלתי אותו. Okay. So for the people at home, Rinpoche said, turn my face to the camera. And so for the people at home, Rinpoche said that, so we've used verse number 26 for taking the Bodhisattva vow, reaffirming our commitment for enlightenment for the sake of others. And so we think that this is something that pleases the mind of the Buddha, in such that so far in our life we have given way to afflictive states of mind. Is that right? So we've given way to afflictive states of mind, but now since we've made a commitment in forms of bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, we think that this is something that pleases the mind of the Buddha, the Bhagavan, in a way that is similar to a child that pleases the mind of the parents or that pleases the mind of the teacher. Today, in reaffirming our commitment for enlightenment for the sake of others, we make the mind of the Buddha pleased.
The question really is, we make Buddha and Bodhisattvas happy, but are we happy? Sometimes we do kind of homework that actually the parents and teacher wants to the kid or the child to learn something. The real happiness should be within them. But what we do is we do homework that we get ice cream or kind of a vacation or some kind of maybe if you get a good grade, then you will get a new phone or whatever. So then we actually don't enjoy what we should enjoy, but we do it for others. So this shouldn't be like this. Dice, tatene karado, tadi dice, kanshi, so ne jiba tadi, so ne ontirisha tadiris, tani yuzaruji pijan tsarusare.
No.
Shiramdu, ne te shashanamadu, yeah.
That's all.
So it looks like we can stop here because now I will finish quite early. Around 3:30 I'll finish, and we can do question and answer. So it's good. So I think it's a little bit hot. That is the excuse. Okay, so yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, and see you at